Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be sharing my mid-year book freakout tag. It's been a really long time since I have posted a video. I've had so many things happen since my last video. I actually had filmed and edited some more videos before I stopped posting, like they're already edited in my computer, but basically what happened was we just kind of hit the ground running and things started opening up. We started doing a lot more stuff. Oh, by the way, I'm just gonna give like a little update here, but you can feel free to like skip this if you're only interested in the answers to the book questions, obviously. In case you're wondering where I've been, here's what's been going on. We started like very seriously house hunting. Like we were seeing a couple of houses every single weekend. We were sometimes leaving work early to run and see a house as soon as it went on the market because things were just insane. Things were like going so quickly. The housing market was definitely like in a bubble and it was pretty much the worst time to be house hunting, but that's just how it worked out for us. Our lease was up at the end of April and we didn't want to be kind of stuck in the city for another year. We wanted to try to find a house before that, so we made the decision to move back to Long Island. We're currently living with my dad while we are now waiting to close on a house. But actually, even before that, right before we moved, we found this house that I just fell completely in love with. It was in the cutest little beach town and it was like a 5-minute walk to the water. So gorgeous, like absolutely loved it. It was a yellow Victorian that was built in the 1800s, which is basically like my absolute favorite kind of house ever. We put in an offer on it, we got accepted, and we did the inspection. And unfortunately, we basically would have just had to redo the entire house to like make it a house that you could live in. We ended up walking away from it. After that, we got all packed. We moved to Long Island, and then within like a week and a half of moving here, we found a house and we got an accepted offer on that one. We did the inspection. Everything came back great. The previous owners of the house are like so nice. I really, really like them. And I just feel really good knowing that we're going to be living in a place that had such like a nice family in it beforehand. And there's a pool. I'm really excited to have a pool. Things have just been like wild while we have been in the process of that. And then as soon as we like signed for the house, Andrew and I ended up going on vacation. We went to Rhode Island. We stayed in Watch Hill. We actually stayed like right next door to Taylor Swift's house, which was really cool. And we went to Newport. I love Newport. It's probably my favorite vacation spot. Came home. As soon as we came home, I went to Bermuda for a work trip. And then what? Oh, we also have gone to the Jersey Shore a couple of times. We spent the week in Portland, Maine. We also did like a day trip to the botanical garden there, which was just gorgeous. And we did a day trip to Kennebunkport. And if we were to go back to Maine, I would definitely want to stay in Kennebunkport. I liked Portland and the food in Portland was like amazing. And I liked seeing like the lighthouses, but Kennebunkport was like what I was expecting Portland to be like. Now I'm home. Oh, and then on the way home, we actually stopped in Salem, Massachusetts, and I had never been to Salem before. So that was really exciting. So it's just been like very eventful, very much a whirlwind of things. Andrew and I have also gone to like every single arboretum on Long Island since we moved here. We just have been having so much fun and getting to spend so much time with family. We are commuting now during the week, which is obviously not the best, but the one thing that I am thankful for is that now I basically have built-in reading time in my day. If you are curious about more of the things that I've been doing or reading, I have been blogging consistently over this year, so I do have like a wrap-up and a book haul post for every single month of the year that you can see on my blog if you're curious. Okay, so I thought this was a good tag to come back on. I don't know how often I will be posting videos. I'm definitely going to be doing some here or there, but I'm not going to be like, it will just be impossible for me to go back to the schedule that I used to keep. I like just do not have the time for that. And I think I would rather do the whole quality over quantity thing. So expect some more videos in the future, but definitely not as frequent as I used to post. So now on to the book tag. And in coming up with the answers for this tag, I realized that I've kind of had a pretty lackluster reading year. Not in quantity, I'm at 82 books out of 100 books for the year, but I haven't had anything that I would consider a new favorite book, which is really unusual, though it is 100% my fault because there were a ton of books that I really was excited to read, But knowing that I had like no attention span with everything going on, I was like, I don't want to read this book right now and then not fully enjoy it as much as I will when I can focus more. I'm finally getting like back into the swing of reading, and I think that some of those books that I've been really waiting to read will end up being like my favorites of the year, and I have no doubt that the second half of 2022 will be like where all of my favorite books of the year come from. I'm also going to be just like inserting photos for any of the titles that I'm talking about because all of my books are in boxes, and I've been really good about like reading a book, and if it's not a favorite, I get rid of it. And as I mentioned, I've read almost nothing that is like a favorite book this year, so here we go. So the first question is the best book you've read so far in 2022. And I have two answers for this one. So the first one would be Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This was a romance book that came out from Berkeley, and I adored it. It was so good. I actually read it while Andrew and I were in Rhode Island. We spent one of our days there just sitting on the beach, reading. It was the best day. So not only do I like love the book, I have really fond memories of reading it. And then the other one is a nonfiction book, and that is Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe. And this one tells the story of the Sackler family. It goes through 3 generations of Sacklers. For those who don't know, the Sacklers are basically the family that is responsible for the opioid crisis in America. If you've read Bad Blood by John Carreyrou, the book that was all about Elizabeth Holmes, like that was nonfiction, but it read kind of like a thriller. This one I feel like was kind of similar in the sense that it had a really strong narrative, and it was very interesting since it was a generational story, but then it was also like terrifying, the things that this family got away with and the exceptions that were made for them, and the amount of times that people tried to expose them for all of the like the bad things that they were doing, and the government and people like at the head of the FDA and stuff just kept giving them like exception after exception after exception until we got to this terrible point. So highly recommend that one if you are interested in learning more about the opioid crisis. I was shocked and appalled, but fascinated. Next is the best sequel that you've read so far in 2022. And for this one, I definitely have to go with Rivals by Katharine McGee. We were told that the American Royals series was only going to be a duology, and then surprise, we got a little novella, which was like fine. It really wasn't anything great. And then we got this third book, Rivals, and that was definitely the best book in the series so far. And I can't even tell you how excited I am for the fourth book. At the end, Katharine McGee kind of gives you a hint of what the title of the fourth book will be, in the sense that she tells you that the word is said like this many times in this chapter, this many times in this chapter. So my guess is that it's going to be called Rain, but we'll see. Next is a new release that you haven't read yet but want to, so I have two answers for this one too. The first one being Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I bought this book like as soon as it came out. It just sounds so up my alley. It's like a cozy fantasy. It follows, I believe she's an orc barbarian who wants to retire from going on like adventures, like kind of like D&D inspired. What she wants to do is retire to this town, and she is opening up the first cafe, like the first coffee shop in this little town. But I think that her past might come to catch up with her. I love the cover. Like I love everything about this one. I have no doubt that this could be a favorite of the year for me. And then the other one that I haven't read yet, which will probably actually be one of the next books that I read, is Family of Liars by E. Lockhart. This is the prequel to E. Lockhart's book, We Were Liars, and I remember enjoying that one when I read it. I don't think I liked it as much as a lot of other people did, but I thought that it was good, and I'm interested enough to read the prequel. Next is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and I have 3 books for this answer. So the first one is Stellar Lunae by Shannon Messenger. This is the, I want to say, 9th book in the Keeper of the Lost City series, and we also found out that it's not actually going to be the last book. We're going to get another book after this book, and I'll take it. I will take all of the Keeper's books that we can possibly get. I love this series so much. It's a middle grade series about elves, but it definitely ages up as you continue reading. So while the first one is very middle grade, it still is like super compelling, but as you like continue on, the books definitely get older. Next on my list would be Kingdom of the Feared by Carrie Maniscalco. I love the series so much. I thought book 2 was like even better than book 1. I just was like absolutely addicted to it. I'm so excited to read the first 2 books over before the third book comes out. I just Oh my God, I love it. I think that Carrie Maniscalco created such an intricate and like fascinating world in the series. I'm just counting down the days for this one. I'm actually going to add a fourth book to this one. But so the next one would be The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This is the second book after Once Upon a Broken Heart, which I also really, really loved. And The Magnificent North was such a fun place for the story to be told. Definitely looking forward to this one. Very whimsical, very fun, lighthearted, and, you know, it's not like intense fantasy. It's more like just enjoyable, fun, like kind of fluffy fantasy. And then the last book that I'm actually going to add to this comes out in just a few weeks, and that's These Twisted Bonds by Lexi Ryan. I loved These Hollow Vows. Like, loved. I got so many people to read it after I read it. I just keep telling my friends over and over, like, it was one of my favorite books. Came out of nowhere as like a favorite book for me, and obsessed. I really love it. If you like fairies, I think if you like The Cruel Prince or anything, I think that you'll also really, really enjoy These Hollow Vows, and I'm hoping These Twisted Bonds. It's only a duology, so once that comes out on, I want to say July 19th, that will be completed, and that would be like a really fun series to just binge read. Next is Biggest Disappointment, and I have two books for this as well. The first one being Book of Night by Holly Black. I was lucky enough to get an ARC of this book, and I think it was like one of the, I read it like pretty immediately because I was really looking forward to it, but unfortunately I just didn't really like it. It ended up being kind of like a 2.5 star read for me. I didn't really like any of the characters or anything, and I was super disappointed because I thought that Holly Black's first adult book would be something that I would just love, and I really didn't. And then as that book came out, it seemed like more people were kind of agreeing with me on that front, so it ended up not being an unpopular opinion. I wasn't sure if it was me, because that was also when I was like busy trying to get everything ready to move. Yeah, I was like, maybe it's me, but I don't think so. And now I really don't think so. And then the other one is a very popular TikTok book, and that is Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. I didn't think that this book was bad. I actually thought that it was like very digestible, very easy to read. And like a couple times while I was reading it though, I was just like, why am I reading this? Like, I know that it's really big on Book Talk, and it seems like a lot of the books that are big on Book Talk are just not books for me. Yeah. I think if I had absolutely nothing to read, I would continue the series, or maybe like in the future, if I am really busy and I'm like, I just need something like very mindless, then I would continue on. But my rate of reading has kind of slowed down because of how busy I've been. And because of that, I've definitely been like cutting books from my TBR that I'm like, I don't want to read this book as much as I would want to read another book. That series kind of got the axe from me. For biggest surprise, I would definitely have to go with Bloodlines by Rochelle Mead. As you guys might remember, I don't know if you will, but last year during August, I binge read the entire Vampire Academy series. Could not get enough of it. Just absolutely fell in love with it. And I'd been wanting to read Bloodlines, but I don't know why I didn't like pick it up right away. I guess I just wanted like a break from the world. So I read it like last week. I think I read it in like 3 days, like 2 or 3 days, which is unusual now, and just loved it. I ended up ordering the rest of the series, and they actually should be arriving today, and those will be the next books that I read. Next is favorite new author, and for this one, I guess I have to go with Carly Fortune, who wrote Every Summer After. This was her debut book, and I really enjoyed it, but otherwise I really haven't read any new authors that I'm like, oh my god, that's a new favorite for me. Honestly, like I would need to read more of her future books before I say that she's even a favorite author, but she's probably like the closest in the running if I had to choose something for this year. Newest fictional crush? Nah. No. Newest favorite character? This one was pretty easy. I would say Molly Gray from The Maid by Nita Prose. I read that one toward the beginning of the year. That was like a cozy mystery book set in a hotel, and I just really, really enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did, but the reason that I did love it so much is because I loved Molly. She was such a resilient character, and she was so strong and so interesting and so valuable, and so many people around her discounted her, but she really like proved everyone wrong in the end. And yeah, I just adored her. Next is Book That Made You Cry. And honestly, like, I feel like I cry in almost every book. I can't think of a specific example right now, but I definitely cry in a lot of books. I probably cried in Every Summer After. I might have cried in Rivals. Like, just assume that I've cried in almost every book that's not nonfiction. Next is Book That Made You Happy. So I have two for this, but they're both in the same series. So Ali Hazelwood came out with novellas, and I believe they're called the STEMinist novellas. And I've read the first two, Under One Roof and Stuck With You, and I loved both of them. I had no doubt that I was going to, since I really was one of the people that loved Love Hypothesis. They came out on audio first, but I prefer not listening. I don't really like listening to romance. I prefer reading romance. So I waited until they came out on on ebook, and I read them both on ebook, and the third and final one in the series actually comes out on ebook in just a couple of days, so I'll definitely be reading that one. The Most Beautiful Book That You've Bought This Year, I actually have this one physically here. I have two answers, but I only have one of them accessible. So The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axio. I got the Fairy Loot edition of this book, and it is quite honestly one of the most beautiful books that I own. It, to me, is just so like Studio Ghibli-esque. The color combination, like, I love everything about this. I love the page color. When I opened this, I was just like, how did they even design this? Like, this is the most beautiful book I've ever seen in my entire life. And then this is the front as well. Let's see if you can see that a little bit better. Focus. There we go. Also, apologies if the framing changed like slightly at all. I'm using my vlogging camera because, again, everything is just like in boxes until we're in our final destination. My camera just like turned off. The battery didn't even die, it just like turned off. So that was fun. The other beautiful book that I would mention is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Seelan Tan. I have the Fairy Loot edition of that, and wow, it's so nice. It's like navy and this like really light, like really pale pink, and the color scheme just like works so well, and I really enjoyed that book too. I read it last year though. I read it as an ARC I think I read it in December, so I couldn't have counted it, unfortunately, for anything in this video. And then the last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? So for me, like, number one priority more than any other book that I own or is in existence, Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. This is one that I really wanted to read like toward the beginning of the year, but it's one that I felt like I couldn't fully focus on. And now that I have my focus back, this is like very much top priority. I'm kind of dipping my toes back in now with some fantasy. I've been reading some like kind of light fantasy, and I think that I'll be like ready for this one really soon. Like maybe like around my birthday is when I'll start it, which is coming up. Also, The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. This was on my most anticipated books of the year list. I really was looking forward to this one. I mean, I'm still really looking forward to reading it. I just think it sounds incredible. It's a debut novel from Orbit, so it's an adult book, and it is inspired by Tales of 1001 Nights, and that's like all I needed to know. I am so sold. And then the last book that I'll mention is that I really want to finish reading Oathbringer. So I started reading Oathbringer in, I want to say February. It was either February or March, and we kind of started our house hunt around the same time. So I want to say I'm like, if I'm not halfway into it, then I'm like 40% of the way into it, but I just wasn't focusing, and I didn't want to ruin that experience, so I decided to kind of put it to the side. Thankfully, I don't think that I need to restart it. I like pretty clearly remember everything that was going on. I could jump in right now and not be confused. So I just need to pick that up at some point and keep going. Though I do have to say I was not enjoying it as much as I enjoyed Words of Radiance, and I think that it's because this book is very Dalinar heavy, and he is kind of my least favorite character of our like main three. We'll see how that goes. I'm sure, I have no doubt that I'm going to end up loving it by the end, but it just wasn't the time for me, you know, that happens. So this is probably going to be a longer video than I anticipated making, but here we are. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I know I gave like kind of a big recap in the beginning of everything that was going on with me, but I definitely miss you guys too. So tell me what has been going on with you. Some other things that I have ideas for videos. I kind of started a new like like TBR system for myself that is working so well. So I might share that in a future video. I do feel like I've been really good about not feeling pressured to read certain things. Like I've genuinely just been picking up the things that I am interested in, which is what I wanted to get back to, because there can be a lot of pressure on booktube about like the books that you have to read. And it's been really nice like not to feel that. Like it definitely makes reading more fun when I'm like, I genuinely want to read this book. So that is all that I have for this video. Let me know how you've been doing. I hope that you've been doing well. I know like world's not in a great place at the moment, so I can commiserate with you on that. But I think that might be why I wanted to like try to do something distracting and creative and kind of catch up with people. So hope that you're doing as well as you can, and I will see you guys soon in a new video. Bye!